This right there is a sheep. Now this lesson's going to be a bit different, but I'm a firm believer that anything can become a lesson. Whether it's picking up a magazine, watching something on television, or even going to places. And that's what we're doing in this lesson. I've been a teacher for nearly 15 years, and in that time I've helped thousands of students from across the world with their goals on mastering a modern British RP accent, learning British English, and learning more about British culture. Hello, by the way, I'm Roy. Please do let me know where you're watching from and what your name is in the comments below. And in this lesson, you're going to learn a lot of interesting vocabulary, so let's crack on. We often say sheep in general. It's weird, isn't it? Because we have one sheep and two sheep, but a male sheep is called a ram, and they usually have a horn. A female sheep is called a ewe, which is spelt like this, but pronounced in the same way like the pronoun you. And a baby sheep is called a lamb, with the silent B. Don't say lamb. In fact, right now, it's lambing season. It's spring in the UK. A group of sheep is called a flock of sheep. So right there, we've talked about animals, irregular plurals like sheep and sheep, one sheep, two sheep. We've talked about collective nouns, of which there are some wonderfully inventive collective nouns in English. And we also talked about the male, female, and baby names for animals. So that's what we're going to be covering in this lesson while I walk around Robin Hill. I've just realised I'm wearing this, and it looks like I'm trying to blend in with the sheep. I think they think I'm wearing sheep camouflage. In fact, you can see a lesson that my son and I did yesterday to talk about the pronunciation of sheep.
Hello, we're teaching about sheep now.
Sheep. So you want to teach the pronunciation of the word sheep, and we're going to say about ship as well. This is a commonly confused pair of words, by the way. A lot of people find this tricky. So how do you say that first one? The animal that goes bah.
Sheep.
That's it. So it's sh-e-p. Sheep. It's got that long E sound in it. Don't hold it for too long.
Or shells.
Shells if you want, but that's something completely different. Let's put that word there. Shells. So it's sh-e-p. Sheep. Hold that E sound. E. Sheep. Whereas ship is slightly different. Can you say ship for me?
Ship.
So you've got sh-i-p. Ship. With that short
Or a pirate
sound.
ship.
A pirate ship. Pretty difficult for you to say because you've got no teeth at the front at the moment. So can you say sheep?
Sheep.
And ship?
Pirate ship.
Pirate ship. So sheep and ship. E-I. That's the key.
And shell.
Shell, of course. Shells you find at the beach. Have a great day and enjoy more lessons with me and my son. Have a great one.
Can I watch?
Yes, you can. So you've done sheep, so what about pigs? Now, technically, pigs are known as swine, but most people will refer to them as pigs in general. Look at the pigs, be it male or female. Technically, a male pig, which is able to reproduce, is called a boar. A female pig is known as a sow. There is also the word hog for male pigs, and that often refers to a castrated male pig. The baby pig is known as a piglet. A group of pigs is known as a drove of pigs. But again, most people will just say pigs. But now let's talk about cows. The name of all of them is cattle, but very, very rarely would we use cattle in everyday conversation. I wouldn't say look at the cattle, I'd say look at the cows. So mature male cattle, which have their sexual organs intact, are known as bulls, whereas mature female cattle are called cows. Young female cattle, one would be called a heifer, plural heifers, and castrated male cattle are known as steer, or the plural steers. But like I say, most people are just going to use the word cows to refer to all of them, with occasionally people using the word bull for the male. I'll be totally honest, not many people are going to check the sexual organs and go, oh no, it's not a bull, it's a steer. They'll probably just say, look at the cows. And a baby cow is known as a calf in the singular and calves in the plural. It's an irregular plural. A group of cows is known as a herd. Horses? Normally, when we're talking about horses, people are just going to say a horse or horses. And it doesn't really matter whether they're male or female, but there are some technical names that we can learn. And there are quite a lot of terms here, I'm not going to lie. So normally a baby horse is known as a foal. Once a horse of either sex is aged between 1 and 2 years old, it's known as a yearling. Then things start to get different. So it goes from foal to yearling, and then we start to differ our terms. A male horse under the age of 4 is known as a colt. A female horse under the age of 4 is known as a filly. Female horse 4 years and older is known as a mare. And a male horse of 4 years and older that has not been castrated is known as a stallion. And finally, a castrated male horse of any age is known as a gelding. But most of these terms people won't know. They'll just use the term foal for a baby, mare for a female, and stallion for a male. But a lot of people will have heard terms like colt and filly, but won't really know where they come in. Now, you may also have heard of the term Mustang. This is more of an American term, and it refers to a free roaming horse. So it's basically a wild horse is called a Mustang, which is also what lends itself to the name of the car, a Ford Mustang. But we don't really have wild horses in England, so we don't really have a term for this, but I quite like the word Mustang. And if you'd like to know any others, let me know in the comments. I can do a sequel. And of course, this trend of having different males and females and collective terms follows on to other animals as well. For example, dogs. Now, normally when we're talking about dogs, we just say dogs for both male and female. We actually, if you go to the vets and somebody says, oh, what is it? Is it male or female? We'll say it's a boy or it's a girl. Now, the technical words is for a male dog is dog. And for a female dog, it's bitch. And this is possibly why we don't use this word, because it's become a bit, well, you know what it's become. So if you really want to say that word, bitch, it has that short I vowel sound, whereas the other word has that long E sound, beach. This is where you see the C, beach. And it sort of has the same E sound, the long E sound, as sheep. A baby dog is called a puppy, and a group of dogs is known as a pack of dogs. And I suppose I should talk about cats as well. Now, normally when we're talking about cats, be it male or female, we just say the word cat. But technically, the word for a male cat is a tom. A female cat is normally called a molly. However, if a female cat is of the age where it can reproduce and it is still intact, in other words, it hasn't had an operation to mean that it can't have babies, it's called a queen during that period of time, which, knowing cats, it makes perfect sense. Why would they not be called a queen? But technically, if they have been spayed, a female cat will be a molly all through its life. A baby cat is called a kitten, and apparently a group of cats, if they are feral or wild, is known as a destruction of cats, which I think is an absolutely perfect name. In fact, they don't really have a common grouping noun, because really you don't really get groups of cats. In fact, there's a really interesting idiom about a group of cats. If you say something is like herding cats, it's basically impossible to organise. God, where are they all? It's like herding cats. In other words, everybody's everywhere. It's a complete disaster. Now, I absolutely love Robin Hill on the Isle of Wight. If you get the chance to come, definitely recommend it. It's based in these beautiful surroundings. Look at this. Now, you could call this picturesque. You could say it's very scenic, or you could say stunning surroundings. Some great words there to describe where this place is located. Look at that. And there's even an ice rink. And I'm about to go and watch a falconry display down there. It's going to be awesome. And it was at this falconry event I had a really wonderful experience. Not only did I get to see birds flying high in the sky, but the person who was presenting and talking about the birds as they flew around also talked about a lot of words that are related or come from falconry that are used in everyday English, and I found that absolutely fascinating. So I was watching birds, and somebody was talking about etymology. One thing that she talked about was fed up. Now, we often think that fed up just means bored, but the original origin of fed up basically means satisfied from eating. It actually kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because you are fed up. And they often refer to a bird that has eaten enough and is no longer wanting to fly as being fed up. Now, commonly when birds aren't flying in the sky, they have these kind of hats on which stop them from seeing. This is to stop the birds getting scared. They're called hoods. So by putting this hood over the bird's head, it can no longer see. And some people say that they hoodwink the bird. Now, interestingly, the term hoodwinked has moved from covering a bird's eyes to mean tricking somebody. So if you've been hoodwinked, you've been tricked. But apparently this one comes from the idea of putting a hood over a bird's eye. Another one was haggard. Haggard usually means somebody who's old or tired, really, really drawn. If somebody looks haggard, they really need bed or a lot of rest. Now, a haggard is a falcon that is caught in the wild as an adult. Haggards were often caught at the end of a long journey, at the end of a migration. So they probably did look a bit tired. Therefore, that term makes a bit of sense of where it leapt from. Now, there were lots of terms that this person talked about, but one of my favourite was under the thumb. So if somebody is under the thumb in a relationship, it basically means somebody completely controls them. Oh, mate, you need to stand up for yourself. You're so under the thumb. But under the thumb also relates to falconry, because if you've got the leash of a bird under the thumb. You're basically in control of the bird. Now, during this falconry session, I learnt a lot. I learnt a lot about how words have come from falconry into English. And in fact, I would love to do an entire lesson on words that have come from falconry into English. I think it would be a fantastic lesson, especially when there is a falconry display area not far down the road. And I also learnt a lot about birds. I absolutely love these kind of birds, and they are commonly known as birds of prey. Birds that are predators and hunt animals like mice and things like this are often referred to as birds of prey. One of those is an owl. That brings us on to the final subject of this lesson. Interesting collective nouns. Now, we've talked about interesting collective nouns, but we have some wonderful ones, not just a destruction of cats. I really enjoy that one. But a group of owls is commonly referred to as a parliament of owls. A group of crows is referred to as a murder of crows. That sounds pretty terrifying. A murder of crows. One I absolutely love is a scurry of squirrels. Again, that word squirrels in British English is squirrels. 2 syllables, stress on the first. But a group of them is not really, they're not really a pack animal by nature, but they are referred to as a scurry of squirrels, which I think is really quite tricky to say. But this is the idea. Scurry is this kind of running action. Sometimes we say that they scurry. It's like a quick, hurried run. A scurry of squirrels. I really enjoy that one. And bear in mind, I live on the Isle of Wight, where we have red squirrels. In most of the UK, they have grey squirrels. But if you want to see some red squirrels, come to the Isle of Wight. We can also go and watch some falconry. And another surprising one is a walk of snails. These things move so slowly. In fact, we have the term move at a snail's pace. But technically, a group of snails is referred to as a walk of snails. If you see a group of tigers coming towards you, you're going to know what a group is called before you have to run away. It's known as an ambush of tigers. In a war zone, if a group attacks another group by surprise, it's known as an ambush. Now, you could also refer to a group of elephants as a herd of elephants, but some people will refer to them as a memory of elephants, which probably refers to the idea that elephants have really good memories. So we'll go through a few more quickly. We have a skulk of foxes, a business of ferrets, an unkindness of ravens. Love that one. Up there with murder of crows. A flamboyance of flamingos. Sadly, we don't get many flamingos here. A gaggle of geese. An exhalation of larks. And while you could say a troop of monkeys, you could also refer to a barrel of monkeys. And I've saved my absolute favourite until last. I absolutely love wombats. We don't get wombats in the UK. I really wish we did. But a group of wombats is known as a wisdom of wombats. So if you ever go to Australia and you see a wombat and you see a group of them, you'll know that they're called a wisdom of wombats. Let me know in the comments below anything that was surprising for you. Would you like more lessons like this format? And if you are interested in British humour and British culture, check out this lesson about 10 British comedies that we think you're going to love. It's time for the podcast. Enjoy.